Alright, what is up guys, NA4 here and welcome back to another ranking video, and today I'm going to be ranking all the Fast and Furious films from the worst to the best. Now this is my humble opinion and I would love to hear yours as well, so in the comment section below let me know what your opinion is or your just personal favorite Fast and Furious movie is and why. Now I wanted to do this for such a long time and I'm so glad I finally get to do so. But to kick this list off, dead last, number 11, the spin-off movie Hobbs Shaw. Look, I don't necessarily hate this movie, but I can do without it, okay? This movie, the problem with it is it just doesn't feel like a Fast and Furious movie at all. And the things that they do in this movie are just so ridiculous that it's just, I don't want to say unwatchable, but it's just like, oh God, like they're really doing this again, huh? So, I don't know, man. It just feels like a freaking little kid is controlling these characters with the things that they do. And I guess they decided, since The Rock and Jason Statham had banter in Furious 7 and 8, that we needed an entire movie dedicated to it, and we didn't. This movie just feels very uninspired. It just feels like a simple cash grab, and I don't know, man. It's not for me personally. Like I said, I don't hate it, but this movie just really forces things too. Like, why is Ryan Reynolds in this movie? Like, he just takes up screen time for no real reason. Same thing with Kevin Hart. Like, they just really forced them into this movie. Like, it's like they realized this movie wasn't that good and they figured that Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart can make it at least slightly better. And I don't know, man. It's just, it's not Fast and Furious. Like, if you would have told me one day The Rock and Jason Statham would be fighting a cybernetic Idris Elba, I probably would have slapped the hell out of you. But we get Vanessa Kirby. She's pretty good. I like her. She's probably the only highlight for this movie in my opinion. So yeah, dead last. I can do without this movie, dude. Like, it's not for me personally, but yeah, Hobbs Shaw, dead last. But in my number 10 spot, I'm gonna go with Fate of the Furious. And I don't know, this movie doesn't do too much for me either. I remember watching it in theaters and just kind of being like, it's okay. And I think the only reason this movie was as successful as it was, it made over $1 billion at the box office. And I don't know why. I think it's only because people were curious to see how they were going to write in Paul Walker's character, how they were going to treat Brian's character in this movie. I think that's the only reason why people really went to see this movie. Like, it has interesting ideas. I do like the idea of a female-led villain with Cypher, because, you know, she can't beat Dom physically, but mentally, she's the threat. And I do think that this movie has interesting concepts, like Dom turning his back on his family, you know, them not knowing that he's being, you know, forced to take these actions and stuff like that. Like, this movie has interesting concepts, but it's, I don't know, it's just not really a great movie. And I can at least appreciate it, but it's not necessarily one that I'm going to rewatch, like, constantly. I think there's much better in the franchise to go from. So I think this movie is watchable, but it's not necessarily a good movie. It's not necessarily one that I'm itching to watch. And like I said, I think people only watch this movie because they're like, oh man, they're doing another one without Paul Walker. So I think that's the only reason why this movie was even successful. The reviews were solid, and like I said, this movie has interesting ideas and concepts, but it's not necessarily a great movie. Now, going into number 9, Fast 9, the movie that they go to space in, absolutely ridiculous. And some people might think this is too high on the list, but it's this high for a specific reason. And it's only because this movie came out during a really hard time for everyone. This movie came out during, you know, the pandemic was still a thing. It was still in effect. And everyone was wearing face masks. Everyone was getting vaccinated. And it was just a hard time for everyone. You know, movie theaters, roller rinks, bowling alleys, all these things were just opening back up. So this was like the wake of that. So that's why I at least appreciate this movie. It just came out at a really like hard time for everyone. But this movie definitely does some interesting things in terms of retcons. Like, apparently Dom has a brother. Like, you telling me Brian and Hobbs did all this research on Dom and they never knew he had a brother? Ramsey and Tej, both super geniuses, never knew he had a brother. Ridiculous. And they bring back Han, which is also a weird retcon, but it's fine. The movie's stupid, but it's somewhat fun. Now, in my number 8 spot, I'm gonna go with Fast X, and this movie is pretty stupid as well. It's ridiculous. It's the most recent one in the franchise, so if you go into this movie expecting it to be goofy and stupid and over the top, that's exactly what you're gonna get. At this point in the franchise, that's exactly what you should expect. But when I went to see it with my cousin, there were at least like 2 moments in this movie where I genuinely did consider walking out just because of how stupid it was. But I don't know, man. It has some type of charm to it. And it's a very messy movie, honestly. This movie already has too many characters as it is, and they go ahead and introduce like 5 or 6 other characters in this movie. And it's too many characters. It's too much going on, but it's fun. It's dumb fun. That's honestly what you pay for. When you buy your ticket and you go to see Fast and Furious at this point in time, you know what you're getting yourself into. So honestly, it had some form of charm to it. It's not a perfect movie or anything, and I'm glad that they tried to, you know, squeeze the Fast 5 storyline into it, because that's one of the better Fast and Furious movies for a lot of people. So I get the thought behind that, but I don't know. This movie was pretty stupid, but charming. Now in my number 7 spot, I got Fast and Furious, the 4th one. And this is the part of the list where the movies actually start to get like good. And this movie is kind of like a clean slate. Okay, after Tokyo Drift came out, it didn't really perform all that well financially. So this movie, it just feels like a clean like slate, like a bit of a reboot of sorts. And it works in my opinion. The only reason it's more towards the middle of this ranking is just simply because it feels kind of bland. And it doesn't do anything that crazy or memorable that this movie it doesn't really stand out like the others do. That's the only reason why it's a little bit lower on this list towards the middle, is because it doesn't really stand out. I enjoy the movie for what it is, and I'm glad that it's like a reunion movie for Brian and Dom, but it's a little bare bones. Like, it was more of just like a taste of what's to come, honestly. And I think the movie's good, but it's not great. It doesn't really do anything too significant that really should put it higher on this list. So it's a good movie. It's a great movie. I like it, but I don't love it. So yeah, that's going to be Fast and Furious 4 for me. Right in the middle. Safe. Now in my number 6 spot, I have Fast and Furious 6. And I feel like, personally, for me, I think this is the movie where the Fast and Furious franchise just really started to just really go there. And I don't know, man. I used to sleep on this movie. I used to just be like, I don't care for it that much, but it's fun. You know, this movie, although I don't think it's as good as Fast 5 was, it's a fun little movie. I appreciate that it's in London, so it's a whole new location. It's not just in LA anymore. And I like that it's not just completely centered around Dom. I like that it's more so a Letty story. Like, it's more of like a retrieving kind of mission. I like that a lot. But I don't know, I like that this movie does have some storylines from the previous movies, like Braga, how he's in this movie technically, because Fast and Furious 4, and Rio, you got Hobbs, he's back. So I at least appreciate this movie for what it is. It's cool. It is infamously known for having the longest runway of all time. And I don't know, man. I like the movie, but I think there are others that surpass it. I think there's more fun movies. I think there's movies that I enjoy just better than this one. So I think I can confidently put it here, just in my humble opinion. But cranking off the top 5, I have Furious 7. And I like this movie. And for a lot of people, most people believe that this is the movie that they should have ended with. It was the perfect conclusion. It was the right way to sign off Paul Walker's character. And I don't know. A lot of people just said, you know, this should be the last one. But then they came out with Fate of the Furious and they just kept it going, you know, just because money, you know. But I like this movie quite a bit. I don't think it's necessarily the best one out there. And I think it might have the best conclusion, though. Like, the ending for this movie is beautiful. This movie has some of the most ridiculous stunts in it, but it's entertaining throughout. And I do like how they go to Abu Dhabi and stuff like that. Like, they definitely have some good things going for this movie. You have Deckard Shaw, played by Jason Statham. Good villain. Like, this movie, it's a good time. I do think that there are better movies than this one in the franchise, but I don't really have too many negatives with this movie. Like, it's a fun little time, good environment, cool, crazy action sequences that, although ridiculous, you still, you know, you feel for them. You're like, oh my God, how are they going to get out of this situation? How are they going to pull this off? Like, although very stupid, it's fun. This is what Fast and Furious is all about. It's just over the top, fast cars, insanity. I like it. In my number 4 spot, I'm personally going to go with Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. And I know when the movie came out, the critics didn't really like it too much, and financially the movie didn't really perform all that hot. But it's just, this movie just has a lot of charm to it, and it has some of the best cars in the entire franchise, and it's just a good time, man. Like, this is one of the movies where it's like, you cannot have a good time with this one. Like, if it's on, you're gonna enjoy it. And it's just pretty much like, imagine the Karate Kid, but with cars. That's what this movie is. That's probably why I enjoy it so much, because I love the Karate Kid. And this is just a fun movie. We get introduced to Han, great character, fan favorite for a lot of people. And it's an interesting story. It plays it safe. It's nothing too in-depth or anything like that, but it's just something about this movie that just has so much charm to it. And, you know, it's an underdog story. Everyone loves a good underdog story, whether it's the Karate Kid or Rocky, etc. This is one of those movies. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's exciting. Damn good movie. I love Tokyo Drift. I come back to it pretty frequently, but it just misses the top 3. I think there's 3 others that I'd like just a little bit more, but Tokyo Drift is a damn good movie. It was the movie that introduced me to Lucas Black. Very underrated. I would like to see him a little bit more in the Fast and Furious movies, but it is what it is. You know, we have Vin Diesel, I guess. It's whatever. But yeah, Tokyo Drift, I enjoy this movie quite a bit. Very underrated, I feel like. Some people really like this one. Some people put it more towards the back. I think this is just a good movie. Visually pleasing. I love the Tokyo setting. And it just has a lot of potential as a story. Like, there's a lot they can do with it. I'm kind of sad that they ruined some of their characters in Fast 9, but eh. Now, cranking off the top 3, I have Too Fast, Too Furious. And as a kid, I probably would have said this one was my favorite one, just because how cool all the cars looked. Like, all the cars just looked so exotic and so cool. And with Brian being my favorite character, it was just so cool to see him get all the, like, majority of the screen time. I really like this movie, man. I know some people now, they say it's a quote-unquote bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think the story is just a little more goofy than the first one. Like, I think the first movie is a lot more grounded, but I definitely think that this is the more fun movie. I like that this movie just has a good time with it. The only real downside for this movie, in my opinion, is just the plot isn't as interesting as the first movies. But I do buy into Brian and Roman's banter. Like, you can tell that they're friends. They're always like bickering, but they also have each other's backs through thick and thin. It's a good movie. We get introduced to Roman and Tej. I would like to see Suki return, though. I was always wanting to see her character. She's great in this movie, and it's just a good story. I like this one a lot. Too Fast and Furious is good. And the runner-up is going to go to the first, the OG, the Fast, and the Furious. This is the movie that kicked it off, the one that started them all. Grounded movie, interesting story. We get introduced to all these great characters, and it's just a really good movie, man. Even back then, like, this movie still stands the test of time. It's a good watch. You can't really go wrong with this movie. The race scenes, this movie I appreciate because it also has a lot of practical effects that I feel like the later movies, they kind of abandoned in replacement of like CGI and special effects. Like, I appreciate these earlier movies because they were actually doing these stunts. These were practical effects, and it's just an interesting story. I love the original Fast and Furious movie. But in my first place, the pound for pound best Fast and Furious movie is gonna go to Fast 5. Now, growing up, I used to just think it was between 1 and 2, but Fast 5, bro, come on. This one is pound for pound the best one. This is the movie that has a perfect mixture of everything. You want racing, this movie has it. You want, you know, quippy, good dialogue, this movie has it. It's not them just saying family 50 times throughout the entire movie. I think this movie is just pound for pound the best one, the most entertaining one, the most well-rounded one. This movie just has a little bit of everything for everyone. The perfect cast. It's a good heist movie. It's a good action movie. It's a funny movie. It has racing in it. And it's just like, man, it was something in the air when they put this movie out. And that's why I feel like Fast X tried to capitalize on it, because they realized fans and critics all love Fast 5. And I think Fast X tried to recuperate on that, but it didn't exactly work out the way they wanted it to. And I think it's just because of the writing for that movie. But this movie, Fast 5, it's just great. I love this movie. Like I said, it has a little bit of everything for everyone. Action, racing, interesting story, good location in Rio. And then it's just like, man, great antagonist. The Rock, he's a good addition to the movies. I know some people weren't too happy with him being in this movie, like just getting into the franchise, as well as some of the other ones that he was doing at the time, like Journey to the Center of the Earth and G.I. Joe and stuff like that. He was just getting into everyone's franchises at this time. And he's a good antagonist in this movie, even though technically he's one of the good guys, but it's whatever. And I know this movie gets a lot of flack for them dragging a vault all around Rio, but they did it with practical effects. I don't know how, but they did it. But yeah, man, if you ask me what's my #1 favorite Fast and Furious film, it's got to be Fast 5. But ladies and gents, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to drop a like on the video, share the video, subscribe if you are new. I would appreciate it. Let me know what your personal favorite Fast and Furious film is and why. But yeah, I'm NA4 and I am out. Peace.